10 years ago, a chemistry student named Kirk Ririe stood at this very podium as the student speaker for the class of 2005. Today, it's my pleasure to welcome Kirk back to the stage as a distinguished alumnus of the Department of Chemistry, a friend of the college, and as this year's keynote speaker. Let me tell you a few things about Kirk before he begins. Before graduating from the U, Kirk co-founded a company called Idaho Technology, a highly successful medical diagnostics company that in 2012 became BioFire Diagnostics and BioFire Defense. Kirk is now the CEO of BioFire Defense. I've known Kirk for a few years now. He is a remarkably creative innovator. He's a wise and successful business person. I've also heard Kirk on several occasions refer to himself as the chief scientific nerd. So, without further ado, please join me in welcoming Kirk Ririe, the College of Sciences chief scientific nerd. Kirk?
Oh, thanks, Henry. Greetings, everybody. Tonight in the program, Stuart represents the fresh young face of science, and I'm the fossilized old success story. They mentioned 10 years ago I was at the same podium, and at that time I already wasn't so fresh-faced. That's because it took me 27 years of kind of off-again, on-again studying to finally finish a degree in chemistry, right? But it was a great experience. I'm the fossilized old guy, fresh face, fossilized old guy. I want to start off by introducing you to a real fossil, Lithostrodion whitneyi. I call her Whitney for short. And she lives actually on a shelf by my desk at work. I keep her around as an example of a life well lived. So I found her on a slope of the mountains on the far side of the Great Salt Lake. She has me beat in age, even me, by about 350 million years. She lived during the Mississippian era, when Utah was a shallow sea off the west coast. So that would have made Moab like beachfront property. And California was appropriately at the bottom of the ocean. So Whitney is a coral. I can see some of the biologists just cringing. They're community organisms. I should really say they, but I prefer to think of her as a she. So she's a coral. And you can actually see little growth rings on her. And you can tell she lived a really good long life, filter feeding and every year pushing her eggs out into the ocean so that they could hopefully find an appropriate home and become the next generation of coral, right? She lived her life growing a coral reef, literally on the corpses of her ancestors. And really, you're doing pretty much the same thing. So the difference is that the reef that you are building your scientific life upon is made not of calcium carbonate, it's made out of ideas. It was built by generation after generation of scientists. And you have climbed on top of that reef. You are finding your place, even if it is in engineering. I mean, so you find your place on the reef, and then you add to it. That is what we do. I object to anyone who says that this day, this milestone in your scientific life is the culmination of anything. It's the beginning. Now is your time to add to the reef of scientific knowledge. So science has improved our lives, compared to any of our ancestors, near or distant. It has improved our lives beyond all measure. My grandmother's grandmother's grandmother, a couple hundred years ago, she was a peasant farmer in Europe. And she lived I am sure, short, unsanitary, brutal existence. She had too many kids and pretty much not enough of anything else. Actually, that's kind of like some of my backwoods cousins in Idaho. But, sorry. Just couldn't help it. So, but I want you to think about your grandmother's grandmother's grandmother. So again, sometime a couple hundred years ago, she could have come from China or India or Europe or the Americas, but unless she was royalty, she was probably pretty much like my ancestor. They lived rough lives. Put yourself in her mind for a minute and think about your daily routine. She would think it was filled with miracles and wonders, or maybe satanic witchcraft. But miracles and wonders, like a fresh cup of coffee from Kona or Kenya, fresh berries in the winter, a toilet that whisks away your poop to a treatment plant. It's totally awesome. So, you guys think nothing of getting in your car or getting on an airplane and traveling further in a few hours than your ancestor traveled in her life, right? Or maybe you skip the trip entirely and Skype. Miraculous. So these wonders are the result of science, the impact of science on society, but really it's the impact of scientific lives well lived. A couple of examples. About 100 years ago, there were some really smart guys that were perplexed by the strange interaction of light and matter. So classical mechanics just didn't seem to work. And they were, I think they were pretty much just screwing around with math. Playing with math, trying to get it right, trying to figure it out. And they came up with some crazy ideas, quantum mechanics. They had absolutely no idea that they were laying the foundation for semiconductors, for transistors, for lasers, the foundation of our modern society. So Whitney here, any Whitneys in the graduating class? Yeah, sorry. Whitney here, she couldn't contemplate the future because she had no brain. But Einstein and Heisenberg and Max Planck, for all their genius, they were no better at seeing the future. They couldn't see smartphones or electric cars or solar panels. They were just trying to play with math, get the math right. So every generation of scientists learns what it's given and then builds the reef in unexpected new ways. Another example, it's closer to home and smaller. 25 years ago, I started a company with a University of Utah professor, Carl Whitwer, and we have added some to the then brand new science of molecular biology. 10 years ago, we had done well enough that I was invited to be the fresh, young-faced speaker, and I hope I did at least as well as I'm hopefully doing tonight. And on Monday, I went to work on a brand new, really the spark of a new idea. It's called Film Array now, and it is a molecular diagnostic system that works in hospital labs, allows the labs to test very quickly and in a really easy-to-use test for all of the common causes of common illnesses. So you load a nasal swab or blood or stool, depending on which end of the patient is sick, and that goes in a machine. 1 hour later, you know what's causing the infection. Viruses, bacteria, parasites, fungi. So when I was a kid, that kind of result would have taken days, weeks to get. It would have involved viral culture and bacterial culture, microscope stains, experts. And now, some of you graduates have kids that could easily run this assay. Super easy, and it takes an hour. The point is, the film array is now part of the reef. Where we'll go from there, I don't know, but it won't be backwards. We will never go back to systems that are slow and complicated or give bad results. So there you have it. This is it. You have reached a huge milestone in your scientific life. I don't know where it'll go, but I do know one thing. You are the best trained class in the history of man or woman. And why is that? Well, a lot of the thanks go to these guys back here and to the faculty all around this great university, because not only have they added measurably to the reef of scientific knowledge, they've also been working on how to teach new generations of students the difficult principles involved, and you are the culmination of that process. So let us begin here with a huge round of applause. Let's beat the last one for the faculty of this great university. And to you, the graduating class, both ahead of me and behind me, the biggest thanks of all. Not for what you've done, it's really cool, don't get me wrong. But now is your opportunity to add to the reef of science. Find your place in it. Find out where you fit. I don't know where that will be. You don't know where that'll be. But I know you will excel and you will add to knowledge. And that is the coolest thing in the universe. So everyone, please join me in thanking in advance the graduating class of 2015. Thank you all very much, and Whitney, thank you for being such a good sport.